Hi, this is Russell Stanhope from teachertrainingvideos.com. I've had loads of people asking me whether or not we can apply the flipped classroom to teaching online. Some of you may know I run the flipped classroom course at Nile, and I also work with FlipNet. The answer to the question is yes, definitely. The principles behind the flipped classroom are perfect for teaching online. It really is a great way to think about your online teaching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly take you through those principles just to make them absolutely clear, and then I'm going to try and apply them and give you some concrete examples of sorts of things that you could possibly do applying the principles of the flipped classroom. Hope you like the video. As always, if you do, please like it, please share it with other teachers, because it's really important at the moment to do that. Please, any comments, I'll do my best to answer them. And if you really want to keep up with my work, please join my newsletter, sign up to the newsletter. That's really popular now. And also, if you want to, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get started. Let me quickly go through the principles of the flipped classroom, because it will really help you when you see the ideas that I'm talking about, and for you to think of your own ideas. Let me take an example not from English language learning or language learning. Let's just talk about another topic, and then we can apply it to language learning. I used to go to history lessons, and in those history lessons I used to listen to the lecture. Let's imagine it was a lecture about, say, the fall of the Roman Empire. So I would be listening and taking notes and basically understanding, remembering all the information that the lecturer told me. And then maybe the lecturer would say to me afterwards, now for homework, I want you to compare the fall of the Roman Empire with the fall of the Persian Empire, which we studied 2 weeks ago. So then I go home or down the library and I start to write a comparative essay of the fall of the Persian Empire with the fall of the Roman Empire. So the teacher was with me when I was doing the lower order thinking skills, and now that I'm beginning to analyze and apply the new knowledge and compare and contrast the difference between the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire and the reasons that they fell, I'm now beginning to apply my knowledge and use it. So people started to say, well, can't we flip that? Why can't the students do the lower order thinking skills at home so that they've got the basic remembering and understanding of something? So in the class, we can do more of the higher order thinking skills. We can begin to do more group work and pair work and analyze and discuss the knowledge. So if we were looking at language teaching, for example, it might be we would get the students to prepare a presentation at home, and then actually in class, maybe in groups, do the presentation. So they're actually doing the basic work at home, and then in class they're beginning to actually work with that. It could even be something kind of grammatical or around vocabulary. We get the students to study some keywords, perhaps that have come up into a lesson, and then in the class we're going to use those words in some speaking activities or writing activities, etc. So we're trying to do the lower order thinking skills at home and the higher order thinking skills in the classroom. This is perfect when you're teaching online. So remember that the flipped classroom is not a theory of learning. It's a way of organizing learning. It's trying to do the lower order thinking skills in the homework part so that you can do some of the higher order thinking skills in the lesson. So what you're trying to do is the students do the kind of behaviorist individual work at home, so that in the class you can do more group work, more pair work, get the students into breakout rooms, get them discussing things. That is really what you want to do. So this is perfect for online teaching. You don't really want to be in a Zoom session, for example, and always talking. What you really want is the students working in breakout rooms and doing activities. So let's now look at some concrete examples of what I mean. Now for this first example, I'm going to use breaking news English, but I'm hoping I'm going to show you something that you might not be aware of exists. I know this website very well. I've even presented it for the owner. So breaking news English offers you news stories that you can use with your students. So you can get the students to read the news story at home, do an activity to check their understanding, and then bring them into the classroom and do some activities in breakout rooms. Let me show you an example, and what we'll do for this example, let's scroll down and we'll use this one here. New York allows online lockdown weddings. We're going to work with that particular news article. So click on this article. My suggestion would be that you would provide the link to this page so the student could read the article, and tell them that if they want to listen, they can also click here and actually listen to the same article. If we just
New York allows online lockdown
being
weddings.
read out.
It
doesn't really matter if they listen or listen and read, or just listen, just read on their own. I really don't mind. What I want them is to become familiar with this story. That's the most important thing that I'm trying to do. Get them familiar with the story. Now, my suggestion is that you might also tell them to do a couple of activities at home. One of them that's really good as a homework activity would be just to do this one here, word order. And they can work on that as homework. So they've got 10 sentences taken from the listening or taken from the reading, and they've got to write them out in the correct order, and then they can check they can check and see whether they got them right or wrong. Now, another thing that you might ask them to do for homework is to just take some basic notes so that they can remember the story. Explain to them they will be using the story in the lesson. So the students have done the basic understanding at home. Now you want them to come into the live sessions with you, perhaps using Zoom or perhaps using Adobe Connect or whatever technology. Now, for this to work, you would need a technology that's got breakout rooms. So this is going to work great in Zoom. And what you're going to do now is you're going to get them into groups of, say, 3 or 4, and there's a couple of really fun activities that you're going to get them to do. So it's not going to be the normal discuss the listening. No, you're going to do or discuss the reading. No, you're going to do something a little bit more interesting than that. Now, remember that when students work out in breakout rooms, they need to share their screens. So make sure that everybody has got this web page open, and then put them into breakout rooms and tell just one of the students in each breakout room to open up the screen and click on this button here, text jumble. And what they've got to do is they've got to rewrite the whole of the listening. Now, if they want to listen again, they can.
New York.
But really what you want them doing is collaborating together, discussing together, and trying to rebuild the text. And the way that they do that is they choose A, B, or C. And it will add the text in here, and then another A, B, or C will come up, and they continue. So let's have a look. So, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has decided, C, that people can still get married. You can do it by. Now, let's imagine so far the students are doing perfect. They've got it all correct. Let's actually get one wrong. So he decided that people can get. So I've got that one wrong. Sorry. So you can see what happens when you get one wrong. It gives you a cross. So now I'm going to choose the correct answer. Going to get married in New York. And you can see now my score has gone down. So the students can be working together, deciding whether it's A, B, or C, A, B, or C, and continually discussing the text. It means there's lots of reading going on, lots of processing of language, and you can be moving around the breakout rooms and seeing how they're getting on. And you can see how well they're getting on because you can see the score. This is a great way of getting the students to actually process and use what they learned at home. So you're kind of doing higher level type of thinking now. You're actually working with the text rather than simply just familiarizing yourself with it. So that would be the first activity. Now, if we go back home or back onto the main page, there's a second activity that I would really recommend. This is one of my favorite activities to do in a breakout room. It's down here and it's called No Letters. Again, move the students into groups of 3 or 4. Make sure they've got access to the website. One person shares their screen. And what they've got to do is they've got to rebuild the whole text. And they can do that by just writing in words that they think are in the text. So obviously the word New York will surely be in there. So I'm going to write New York in and click on check. There it is. I'm also going to work on the word, for example, Andrew, because I think it's Andrew Cuomo. So that's going to be there. Of course, small words like and is going to be there. The is going to be there. Okay. So you just get the students together to think of as much vocabulary. Now, it's actually really hard to do this, to rebuild the whole text. At the beginning, it's easy because you can put in all the simple words like to, have, the, and, an. But very quickly, you need to start thinking about the words connected with the topic. So then you're coming to the kind of words that have got the content words like marriage, okay? Marry, for example. Let's have a look and see if that's in there as well. And so you add the words. Now, if the word isn't there, you'll notice that it will come at the bottom. This is a great activity. The students working together, collaborating, thinking of the vocabulary connected to the listening. Now, if they want to, they can listen here and go through it again. That will make it obviously slightly easier, but it's still great listening practice. Your job is to move around in the breakout rooms and to see the score. I like this as an activity because, again, the students aren't just discussing the text, they're actually working with it, they're trying to rebuild it. It really makes sense to do an activity like this. There's an absolute mass of other activities that the students can also do. There's a few that I really like. I like this dictation one. This again can be done in groups, and the students have to rebuild the text sentence by sentence. It's very similar to the activity I just showed you, but this time it's done sentence by sentence. So it's more kind of listening or dictation type of activity. So there are other activities that you could finish the lesson with, and it's really worth having a look through and deciding if there's a particular activity that you want to do. A possible way to finish this as a lesson is simply to get the students to even prepare a presentation about this article, and then perhaps even in the next lesson. So for homework, they could be preparing a presentation, and then again in the next lesson, then they could do the presentations in breakout rooms. Or you might want to end the lesson here. So you get the idea: lower order thinking skills at home, higher order thinking skills in the class. Google Maps is brilliant for doing a kind of flipped classroom type of lesson. Now, what I would normally do in this case is in the class, I would present something in the live session. I would present something to the students, to like a model, and then tell them, right, okay, for homework, I want you to choose any place, anywhere in the world. It can be a building, it can be a street, it can be a monument, it can be your school, it can be where you're born, doesn't matter what. And then you're in the class, you're going to present it to the students. So take a few notes, prepare it. So the students doing the preparation work at home so they can do the presentation in the class. Now, I've tried this out a couple of times now, working not with students but working with teacher trainers, and it's worked really well. So I'm going to do an example here. I'm going to click on Quentin Hogg statue, and we're going to come right down to the statue of Quentin Hogg, and then I'm going to just bring this down and drop down right in front of that statue. So this is Quentin Hogg. In fact, if we click on this button here, we might even be able to come in a bit closer to the statue. It's near to the University of Westminster in Regent Street, which he founded, or was certainly involved in turning it into a polytechnic originally and then into a university. I like Quentin Hogg. He's an interesting character to me because he was very much involved in trying to better the lives of working people. He did a lot for education amongst working people, and was a big sportsman. He actually went to Eton and played. In fact, he was part of the group of people that formed the Football Association. So he was one of the founders of the Football Association, played in several football matches, including a couple of FA Cup finals for Bolton Wanderers, and also was involved in organising some of the very first international football matches between Scotland and England. So for lots of reasons, for me, he's a really interesting character. However, even more special for me is that I met his great-great-granddaughter, because when I won an award at Westminster University, she came along as the great-great-granddaughter of the founder of Westminster University to meet me, and so she was very surprised how much I knew about Quentin Hogg. There we are, my little presentation. Now the students could do exactly the same for homework. They could prepare any place around the world, any statue, any building, any place they went to. It could even be where they were born. It could be a particular cafe they go to, or a school they went to, or a place they used to spend time with their friends. It doesn't really matter. It's only going to be a short presentation. It's going to be personalized. They do the lower order thinking skills at home, and then in the classroom you put them into groups. They open up Google the Google Maps, visit the place they want, and then present it to the rest of the group. This is a lovely activity to do on lots of levels. And again, it's using that flipped classroom idea. In this case, I've modeled an example for the students so they're clear about what they want to do. Then for homework, they would obviously prepare a presentation, then back in the next lesson, put them into groups in the breakout rooms and get them to present their places to the rest of the class. Now, another good thing about this is it's not too heavy on the internet. So you've seen a couple of examples. That second one, we used Google Maps. We could have used Google Earth. We could have used some of the virtual tours. I was looking, for example, at the British Museum. You can do virtual tours of the British Museum, and that could be great for presentations as well. The students could study a particular artifact, painting, and then talk about it and present it. That could be a really powerful idea. The only problem with those types of activities is, of course, that you've got to have access to the internet or know about those materials, know where they are. One of the best and easiest ways to do the flipped classroom is to use your course book, because you can ask your students to go home and read a certain article in preparation for a presentation or a discussion or some activities that you're going to do in breakout rooms. Now, if they have access to the ebook, because most books have an ebook, an electronic version, that is brilliant, because then the students can go home and they can watch videos from the ebook or audio, and of course it's all connected to the course book, so it makes much more sense. The ebook is an electronic version of the course book. That will save the teacher ages, because simply you just access that content, tell the students what you want them to watch or listen to or read, and can even do some activities around it, and then you can connect that to what you've planned to do in the lesson. So that's a great idea for the flipped classroom, lower order thinking skills at home. In the live session in Zoom, do the higher order thinking. So I'm going to show you now some examples based around the electronic ebooks, and it really is my advice to look into these ebooks, because whatever publisher you're working with, that if you can use the ebooks, I really do think it's going to save you as a teacher a lot of time. So I'm taking an example here from New Enterprise, which is an express publishing books, because I have access to their digibooks. And I was just looking through. I can navigate literally to any part of the book by just simply clicking on this drop down menu and jumping there. And this would be a perfect exercise, for example, for the students to do at home. So they've got a number of names of famous people here, and what we could do is, as an activity, get them to choose any of these people, for example, as a homework activity, prepare a short presentation about them, bring them into the main into the live session, put them into groups, and get them then to obviously search for an image of the particular person and then present their information to the rest of the group. And what the rest of the group could be doing, for example, is taking notes. And then when you bring them back as a big class together, you could say to the students, okay, what have you learned that you didn't know before the lesson? Someone might say, oh, I've learned that Mahatma Gandhi used to be a lawyer, or something like that. So you can do lots of different things, or do an activity that would just make sure that the students have kind of brought the activity together at the end. So preparation at home, you might get them at home work as homework, simply to do this simple exercise here, which is just simply a drag activity to put the words in correctly. Tell them as their homework they've got to prepare a short presentation. So lower order thinking skills done at home, in the classroom, put the students into groups, tell them to present their character to the rest of the class. They'll just simply, it would be a nice idea to find a picture of that person. They just search for a picture on the internet, present that information, and then ask the students, take notes on anything that you hear in the presentations that you didn't know before. And then when we bring all the class back together and say, right, okay, what did you learn? So we're kind of bringing the lessons together. For me, these digibooks are absolutely vital. They really are a game changer, because if you have access to the digibook that goes with your book, I mean, you can, of course, use the normal course book, but the benefit of working with the digibook, of course, is that not only have you got access, for example, to pictures, but you would have access to video and listening content as well. So if I showed you an example, it could be an activity where, for example, you want the students to listen to something. So that's the advantage of the digibooks, particularly because it has access to videos, it has access to the audio, has access, of course, to all of the exercises that are in the book, but they're actually electronic. These digibooks work in a really clever way as well. If you associate the digibook with a particular class, you can actually give the homework, choose the homework that you want to give to a particular student. So in this case here, I could actually assign this homework to my class, and then it will even track and tell me if the students did the homework or they didn't. Really worth looking at the platforms with the book that you're working with. I hope that was useful. If it was, please like the video, please share it, please comment on it, And if you want to follow my work, come over to teachertrainingvideos.com. Loads of free stuff here. And you can also sign up to my newsletter, which is really growing again now. You get updated on all the webinars, the blogs, the online courses, the new videos that I add up. And if you just want to keep up with the videos, well then just subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you'll see when the new videos get added onto the YouTube channel. And thank you very much.